Welcome everyone, it's Laura Jacques-Gilmour here with your weekly collective card pull with the Remembering You Oracle deck. This reading is for the energy of July 14th to July 20th, so just notice what stands out for you and trust what resonates. This deck is one I created to help you reconnect with your inner knowing. It came through my own process of remembering who I was beneath all the roles, patterns, expectations, and the old stories I had been carrying. So when I use these cards, I'm not using them to tell you what to do or using them to predict your future, and I'm definitely not using them to replace your intuition. For me, the cards are more like a mirror. They give language to what your body, your heart, and your own inner knowing may already be trying to show you. Before I show this week's reading, I want to share the process I use in my own daily practice. Before I pull cards, I like to ground first. I ask the questions. I listen for what I sense. I usually write that down first, and then I pull cards to see what they confirm, deepen, or bring into clearer focus. Because the whole point is not to give our power away to the cards. The point is to practice trusting ourselves again. So before we begin, just take a breath with me. Let your shoulders drop. Let your body arrive. You don't have to figure anything out right now. Just notice what you notice. The 3 questions I asked for this week were, what are we being invited to notice within ourselves this week? What are we ready to release, soften, or stop carrying? And what part of ourselves are we being invited to remember or reclaim? So, here are this week's reading insights. Question 1. What are we being invited to notice within ourselves this week? When I sat with the first question, the message that came through was, emotions we have been pushing down. Then I pulled the card, devotion. Interesting combination. What I feel this card is adding is that we might be being asked to become more devoted to noticing what we are actually feeling, because it can be so easy to tell yourself you'll deal with it later, after the day is done, after everyone else is okay, after you have more time, more space, or more energy. But those feelings usually keep sitting underneath everything. They can show up as irritability, exhaustion, heaviness, or that sense that something is off, even when you can't quite explain why. So this doesn't feel like a week to force anything open. It feels more like an invitation to stop brushing past what is already there. To notice the feeling before you explain it away and give yourself a little more space before automatically moving on to the next thing. Devotion feels like choosing to return to yourself in those small moments. Not only when things become too much, but while your body is still quietly trying to get your attention. The reflection question for this card is, what am I being called to devote myself to more fully? And for this reading, that may be your own healing, your emotional needs, or simply being more present with yourself. Question number 2. What are we ready to soften, release, or stop carrying? When I sat with that second message that came through was, responsibility of trying to fix everything. Then I pulled the card creativity. What I feel this card is showing us is that when so much of our energy is tied up in fixing, there is not much room left for anything new. You can get so focused on what's wrong, what needs to change, or what someone else needs from you that you stop noticing what wants to come through for you. Because fixing keeps you looking at the problem. It keeps your attention on what is not working, what needs managing, or what might fall apart if you stop holding it together. And after a while, that can become the only way you know how to use your energy. Creativity feels like a completely different kind of movement. It's not only about making art, it can be a new idea, a different response, setting a boundary, or changing direction because the way you have been doing things no longer feels right. It might even be the moment you stop asking, how do I fix this? And start asking, what else could be possible here? Because sometimes the new thing cannot come through while all your energy is still tied up trying to repair what may not even be yours to fix. The reflection question for this card is, what is seeking to be created through me? And maybe also, where could something new begin if I stop trying to fix everything first? The third question, what part of ourselves are we being invited to remember or reclaim? And finally, when I sat with the third question, the message that came through was, all the childhood dreams we had about what our lives would be before we grew up and took on all the roles. Then I pulled the card compassion. And I think this is such a gentle card to receive with that message, because when you think back to the things you dreamed about as a child, it can bring up more than excitement. You may also notice sadness, regret, or that quiet feeling of wondering when those dreams got pushed aside. Maybe life became about being practical, responsible, doing what needed to be done, and somewhere along the way, the part of you who imagined freely became quieter. Compassion is not asking you to look back and judge yourself for the choices you made. It's not asking you to decide that your life should have turned out differently. It feels more like an invitation to meet that younger part of yourself with some kindness, to remember that you did not only dream about what you wanted to do, you also knew something about how you wanted life to feel by being freer, more joyful, and creative. Dreams that left you more open to possibility, and maybe those dreams are not gone. Or maybe they have just been waiting underneath all the roles you had to become. So the reflection question for this card is, how can I meet myself with greater compassion today? And for this reading, you might also ask, what did I once dream about before I started deciding what was practical, responsible, or expected of me? So let me bring this all together for you. When I look at all three of these cards together, what really stands out to me is where our energy has been going. So many of us have been putting our energy into holding everything together, pushing our feelings aside because there are more important things to deal with while trying to fix what isn't working. We have been getting caught up in the roles we've taken on instead of the dreams we once had. And what these cards feel like is they're inviting us back to ourselves. Devotion asks us to come back to what we're feeling instead of brushing past it. Creativity reminds us that when we stop putting all of our energy into fixing everything, we create space for something new to come through. And compassion gently brings us back to the parts of ourselves we may have forgotten along the way. None of this feels like it's asking us to make huge change this week. It feels much quieter than that. Maybe it's simply noticing. Noticing what you're feeling or what you've been carrying. And maybe even noticing what still lights something up inside you. What might be the biggest thing you try this week is to start trusting yourself enough to take one small step toward coming back to yourself. And finally, as you move through the week, remember, devotion asks you to come back to yourself. Creativity asks you to stop pouring all your energy into fixing. And finally, compassion asks you to be kind to the part of yourself that got lost in all the roles. Sending you all much love from my heart. If this reading resonated with you, I'd love it if you would subscribe, like, and share it with a friend to help build my channel. And if something about this deck speaks to you and you'd love to be part of bringing the first physical Remembering You Oracle deck into print for everyone, comment cards and I'll send you the details.